We've been talking a lot about exoplanets recently, especially those potentially suitable for life. But sometimes planets aren't the best place to live in a system. Sometimes it's the moons that steal the spotlight. And while there are no guarantees, some exomoons out there may be better suited for life as we know it than many of the planets they orbit. There are plenty of reasons why scientists think there could be moons out there with oceans and an atmosphere and critters living in them. So in this video, we're going to talk about a few of the exomoons that could host life. Some of these worlds may be more common than you think. A new study published in the journal Astrobiology in August 2023 suggests that there could be more moons suitable for life in the Milky Way than planets suitable for life. And that means that instead of focusing all our searches on planets, maybe we should turn our telescopes towards moons too. The authors of the study used computer simulations to model the formation of planetary systems and predict how often moons with an ocean could form. They found that in a typical system, moons that could support life might be up to 30% more common than planets that could support life. And since there are already tons of exoplanets out there, that means there could be a whole lot of potentially habitable moons in our galaxy. Moons can also be habitable even if their planets aren't. You see, even though some moons in our solar system like Europa, Ganymede, and Titan have atmospheres, most moons don't. But not having an atmosphere doesn't necessarily mean a moon can't be habitable. There just needs to be another source of heat, and that could come from tidal heating. Tidal heating happens when a celestial body like a moon gets stretched and then released by a nearby massive body like a planet. That stretching and releasing creates heat inside the moon, keeping it warm enough to have a liquid ocean. Take Earth's moon, for example. It's tidally locked to us, which means we only ever see one side of it. The reason it stays in orbit around us instead of crashing into us or flying away is that the gravity of both the moon and Earth keeps stretching the moon into a bit of a football shape. The side facing us is actually bulging slightly, and the gravity on that side pulls a bit harder on the moon than the gravity on the far side does. This difference in gravity creates friction inside the moon, which generates heat. It's that heat that probably keeps the insides of the moon partially molten, allowing the tides to bulge up and creating our familiar high and low tides. If a moon is close enough to its planet, this tidal heating effect could keep the moon warm enough to have liquid water on its surface. And that's the case for some moons in our solar system. For example, Jupiter's moon Europa has an ocean of liquid water beneath its icy surface, likely heated by the stretching caused by Jupiter's gravity. But this same effect could happen around exoplanets, too. In fact, most exoplanets known to have moons probably experience tidal heating. So if we want to find life elsewhere in the universe, looking at these tidally heated exomoons might be a great strategy. But you might be wondering, okay, so moons can be habitable, but how do we know if they are? Well, astronomers have been searching for signs of life on exoplanets and moons for years now. And they've come up with a few methods they use to search for telltale signs of life. One of the main methods they use is called the transit method. When an exoplanet passes between us and a star, it blocks some of the starlight, which causes the star to dim slightly. Astronomers can measure how much the star dims and use that to figure out the size of the exoplanet. But if an exomoon is in front of the planet, blocking some of its light, that will cause an even tinier dip in brightness. This would indicate the presence of a moon, and if astronomers are lucky, they can measure the mass of the moon, too. That's because when a moon moves in front of its planet, the planet itself will also move in front of the star, allowing astronomers to use the transit method to measure its mass as well. With the mass and size, astronomers can work out the density of the moon. And if it turns out that the moon is big and fluffy, like Earth's moon, it might be made of rock and ice and maybe even have an ocean, too. So if astronomers find a moon that looks like it could have an ocean, they lines follow up with other instruments to check if it really does have an atmosphere and maybe even some clouds. And if it does, well, that would be pretty exciting. With all that in mind, let's take a look at a couple of exomoons that might be good candidates for hosting life. One of those candidates is a moon named Kepler 165b. It orbits an exoplanet named Kepler 165b, which itself orbits a star about 800 light-years away. We know that the system has a planet and a moon because it was actually discovered using the transit method. And we were able to tell that it had two bodies orbiting it by watching how the light dipped multiple times. First, the planet passed in front of the star, causing a noticeable dip in light. Then the moon did the same, causing a smaller dip in light. And here's where things get interesting. The planet is about twice the size of Earth, but the moon is about the same size. We're still waiting on results from further observations, but the moon could have an atmosphere and maybe even liquid water. And since the planet is fairly close to its star, the moon might receive enough tidal heating to keep any water on its surface liquid. Of course, this is all hypothetical right now, but if it turns out that Kepler 165b does have an atmosphere, that would be very exciting because it would be the first clear evidence for an exomoon with an atmosphere. It would also be the first exomoon that has been confirmed to orbit a planet in the habitable zone of its star. But while it's hard to detect these moons, they're also what makes the hunt for alien life so exciting. Maybe we'll find life on a moon before we find it on a planet. Now, I hope that didn't make you feel like the ground beneath your feet is suddenly unstable. I'm just saying, you never know. The universe is full of surprises. And while moons might seem like a small and unlikely place to search for life, they could hold the key to one of the biggest mysteries in the universe, the search for extraterrestrial life. So next time you look up at the moon, remember that it might not be the only moon out there with life. And who knows, maybe one day we'll find out that we're not alone in the universe. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to help us explore the unknown, you can join us on our platform. Our team of expert science communicators bring you new science videos every week, along with sneak peeks, behind-the-scenes content, and more. Plus, by joining, you'll help us grow our team so we can continue producing free videos for everyone forever. So visit our website to learn more and join today.